Hello everyone, and I'm Imalune, and today we're going to be talking about cleaning and building your miniatures. First of all, we have to go over our supplies that we're going to be using during this video. So the supplies that we have here, we're going to start with this Dremel. This Dremel is an optional supply, and it is not going to be reviewed in this tutorial. It is used for magnetizing minis, which means using parts with magnets. So you can take apart your models and use them for multiple pieces for other models. Some models come with, such as the Warpwolf Stalker comes with the Warpwolf Pureblood and the Warpwolf Feral parts, and so you can use this to magnetize it so you can use that all for one model. Um, However, once again, we're not going to be using this in this tutorial. This I just wanted to show you that it exists and that is what its purpose is for. I have these for clipping. It's for clipping big pieces of plastic and nubbins, but not for tiny details, small details. Then we have the razor blade. The razor blade is very sharp, so be careful and not to touch it with your finger on the blade. It can also, don't get it wet because you can get it rusty. We're going to be using this for cleaning plastic bits that the clippers cannot handle. So it's for smaller, finer details. Next, of course, we have a paper towel, and it's going to be for swapping up glue mostly. As a warning, you're going to want to have a sink, so that way you can make sure you get the glue off of any fingers or your palm or any body parts as soon as possible, because you don't want the glue to stick to your skin. And here is the glue in question. I'm using Arms Keeper Instacure Plus glue. It's a gap-filling medium glue, also known as the purple glue. It takes 5 to 15 seconds to dry. It's especially good for your metal minis, and I also use it for my plastic minis. However, you must make sure to not get this onto any of your body parts because it will fuse your body parts extra well. And if it does get on your body parts, make sure to quickly go to the sink and wash it off as soon as possible. I use warm water. I haven't tried cool water, but I know warm water works out very well. Of course, then we have our miniature. He came in a battle box, but I'm using one of the blister packs to hold all of his pieces since the rest of his battle box is completely assembled. So the figure I'm doing today is the Mitigator from the Convergence of Cyrus from Privateer Press. He is a light vector, which is a light warjack. Now we're going to be organizing our model out so that way we know what pieces go where. So I'm just going to gently dump out all of the pieces here. I'm keeping this blister pack so that way when I start trimming and stuff, I have a place to put all the extra trimmings. So what I made sure to do is organize it in a way so that way I know pretty much more or less where everything goes. So you can see here, here's his head. His little arm piece attaches to the chassis right here with his two arms that attach to that. His gun attaches to his chassis. His bottom attaches to his chassis. And then the plates go onto the legs and the legs go into there. If you don't know how to put together your figure, you can go to the Privateer Press's website and you can see the model that you're putting together. So here's Privateer Press's website in the Convergence of Cyrus, and I have it on the Mitigator webpage. And they have a 3D rotation of the figure that you can use. And I don't need this per se, and I can't seem to find the pieces that I don't know where they go. However, this is a good reference if you do not know how to put together the miniature that you are going to be using. So we're going to start off by using our clippers to clip off any big pieces that we see on any of our pieces. Make sure before you start clipping that you know where all of your pieces are going to go into, like the chassis is going to go on the top here, and the legs are going to go into the holes. There's this big nub on the end, right here, that you can see, and that is not going to be going into anything or going to be used for anything. So what I'm going to do is just gently clip it off. I press this fine edge flush against whatever I'm clipping before I make a clip. That will just make it nice and even when it's completed with the clip. I can't clip any more off of this piece, so I'm going to move to the next piece. And on this plate right here, I have this little extra bit there. This will just help you get off big pieces before you start going through with your razor blade. So flush against it and clip. Go onto the leg. This little nub here will actually clip into the plate for the leg. So I want to make sure to just gently clip the top just a bit, but not enough to damage the actual piece. Make sure to clean up all of your miniatures pieces. That's what I'm going to do now. And I finished using my clippers, so I'm going to go into the much more in detail razor blade. Now remember to be extremely careful with your razor blade because of how sharp it is. You don't want to accidentally hurt yourself. So I'm taking my razor blade and I'm just gently shaving the end until I have it exactly how I want it. Remember to try to keep the razor blade pointed away from you as much as possible, because otherwise you can cut into your fingers. So with my razor blade, I'm going to also make sure to get some of those little plastic extra edges that were from the actual printing right here. I don't need to be too thorough because the painting job will cover up most of that. So you may want to go back with a file and straighten out any little dips or curves or uneven surfaces that you may have on any of your pieces. Make sure that when you are cleaning with your razor blade that you don't get your blade stuck into a harsh place and then pull as hard as you can, because your knife will fling really hard and you can end up hurting yourself. Make sure to separate any parts out that you're going to be using for magnetization. So in this case, it will be the head, the gun, and the chassis, because I would be dremeling them, and with dremeling, you want to make sure to have all those pieces separate so that way you can get the magnets in there properly into the places that you need them to be. The rest of the pieces can be glued immediately together. Now, with a metal mini, you may want to use the pinning method to create a hole with a Dremel, and then once you have that hole, you insert a small rod or a piece of metal to stick out and drill another hole into the connecting piece, and then when you glue them together, that sort of adds like a little skeleton base, so your mini will hold together better any of your pieces. Make sure that when you are cleaning with your razor blade that you don't get your blade stuck into a harsh place and then pull as hard as you can, because your knife will fling really hard and you can end up hurting yourself. Alright, so now we are into gluing. So make sure you have your choice of glue. Remember that different glues will work better for different types of minis. I use this glue for both metal and plastic minis. I find that it holds a lot better. Now remember that you need to keep in mind any parts that you will be magnetizing, such as in this case his gun and his head would be magnetized, but the rest of his pieces would be glued together. So I'm going to keep the gun and the head separate for magnetization, and the rest of the pieces will be glued on. And pretty sure it's a head. Okay, anyway. Make sure to separate any parts out that you're going to be using for magnetization. So in this case, it will be the head, the gun, and the chassis, because I would be dremeling them, and with dremeling, you want to make sure to have all those pieces separate so that way you can get the magnets in there properly into the places that you need them to be. The rest of the pieces can be glued immediately together. Now, with a metal mini, you may want to use the pinning method to create a hole with a Dremel, and then once you have that hole, you insert a small rod or a piece of metal to stick out and drill another hole into the connecting piece. And then when you glue them together, that sort of adds like a little skeleton base, so your mini will hold together better. And you may want to make sure that you have all your pieces separated out for if you're going to be doing separate piece. Make sure to also have your pieces separated out for when you're going to be priming. If you want to have separate pieces, I do not recommend having everything completely separate, because what will happen is if you don't glue it together, you'll get primer onto the pieces that will be gluing together onto your other pieces. And with that, you can get a problem where the primer will actually crack and the mini will break because of the primer being there. And it will break at that primer. From there, you'll have to actually go in with your knife and your razor blade, and you want to scrape out all the old primer and glue as much as possible and re-glue back onto your pieces. And also, if you start failing at gluing multiple times, I recommend 2 to 3 times be your maximum of failure. Scrape it out with your razor blade on both pieces and then glue again. Alright, so we're going to start gluing. And what we're going to start gluing is I'm going to glue the legs onto the little plates. So it'll be like this. So make sure your glue is open and ready to go. And make sure, once again, to have your paper towel at the ready for any extra glue. And if you're going to be removing glue with a paper towel or anything, be quick while the glue is still wet, so that way you don't get things permanently stuck together like a paper towel stuck to your mini. So glue directly onto the surface with as little glue as possible. So I have as little glue as possible. Now remember to hold it in place for 5 to 10 seconds, or with plastic minis and a glue this strong, it can be only a couple of seconds before it is completely stuck on properly like it is now. Move on to your next piece. So keep rinsing and repeating. Once again, using as little glue as possible. Make sure to swab up any extra glue, because my glue actually slipped. Whoop. very gently re-add the glue. Remember, once again, using as little glue as possible, and hold it on again, gluing again. Remember to be careful when you're re-gluing, because you can get your fingers stuck in the glue that you had just placed before unknowingly. Remember that if you have any problems, such as getting glue on your fingers, to immediately run to a sink and run it under water. I use warm water once again, and I haven't used cool water, so you want to make sure to get your fingers, hands, body parts, whatever, underwater immediately. Drop everything, run over, and get that removed because you don't want that stuck to your body, and you don't want your body parts sticking together. Another thing you can do if you get the glue stuck onto your body parts is to use acetone, which is fingernail polish remover, and you can use those products to gently remove the glue too. However, I just use warm water and just get over there and done and over with. Way too much glue. Way too much glue. I'm making sure, since it's got feet, I want to make sure that it's all nice and flat, so that way it can stand up on its own when it's all nice and dry, like that. And of course I'm not gluing on his gun, so we're just gonna have to imagine right there. And that is building your miniature. So I've been Imalune, and I hope this has been helpful, and hopefully you can build yourself an amazing miniature, no matter what type it is. It doesn't have to be Horde's War Machine. It could be anything. So have a wonderful day.